Hello and welcome to Future of Film's Virtual Production Revolution, our special show on the future of filmmaking and the pioneers who are making virtual production a reality. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of our supporters who have made this series possible. Epic Games and Unreal Engine, Brompton Technology and Garden Studios in London, whose incredible virtual production stage I am now sat on. So that just leaves me to say thank you again for listening and watching, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Virtual Production Revolution.
Yeah, so I'm the virtual production supervisor here at Garden Studios. Essentially, my job is making sure that what you see behind you looks good on camera, and it sells, and it's all about like that sort of that final pixel look. That kind of goes down to like 2 or 3 different main roles. So the main one you've got is the Unreal operator. So that's the person that is behind the control desk at any one time, and they'll be doing things like controlling, the brightness of the lights, where different elements are. If you've got any animations that need triggering, they're kind of the person that runs that for the director and the DOP.
Right. So is that like a how sort of how involved are the director and DOP in that? Is a constant sort of communication going on?
Yeah, it's been really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's been really interesting seeing how people that come from sort of traditional film shoots and sets now work. Because obviously you've got normally quite a rigid hierarchy of, who talks to who and it gets funneled back down. One really good thing about virtual production is sets have had to become a lot more collaborative. So you've got lots of different departments that normally wouldn't speak to each other until they're on set on the day, is now they're having to have those conversations in pre-production. So, you've got your art director, your gaffer, your DOP, all actually having an idea of what they're doing before they arrive, which is just really good from a collaborative and creative sort of standpoint. And how we sort of slot into that is facilitating those conversations between those different departments. Right. So, the first AD or the director is still going to be giving us, telling us what they want to see. And it's up to us to work with the DOP and the art department and the gaffer to make sure that what they've asked for can be delivered.
What are the things that you found particularly surprising or interesting working on set like this?
I think how everyone's using it differently, to be honest with you. Because the thing is, virtual production is such a nebulous term. It can include green screen. For some people, that's just using game engines for pre-visualization. Do
you have a definition of virtual production?
When I think of virtual production, I think of an LED volume being used for your final sort of pixel look. Yeah. But that being said, it's a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think when we speak about it and when the people at Epic Games and Brompton speak about it, a lot of the time they are talking about a full LED volume. But yeah, I think the really interesting about using it for virtual production is all the different sort of projects you get coming through here. Sometimes we're doing, video plates of driving for car stuff. For sort of film and television. Sometimes we've had musical artists coming in and doing like really weird abstract things with it, all the way through to doing pickups for existing shots. And it's just really interesting to see, the sort of things that people said, virtual production is not good for that, sort of a year or 18 months ago. We've gone, well, actually, if you do it in this particular way, then it is good. Something I do want to say as well is, we're very, very clear when we're talking to the producers and the directors about what it's not good for as well. And sometimes, a big, wide, establishing nature shot, we'll look at the script and say, go shoot that on location. Virtual production isn't a sort of silver bullet that's going to solve all of your worries. But if used correctly, it's a great way, to be more sustainable, to save time on the shoot, to save money, and to have that flexibility that, if you need to do a pickup after a shoot, you can just come to a virtual production stage and, get those shots that you need.
What are the kind of projects you mentioned that some projects originally they thought wouldn't work, and now you see them come through? Are there any particular types of shots now which you're seeing come through like that?
Yeah, so actually a lot of video plate stuff. And not just, so obviously driving's the main one where everyone thinks, right, that's great for virtual production because you've got, you know, all the reflections, you've got the lighting on your subjects, and you've also got the fact that your talent's more engaged with what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't got a first AD or someone shouting cues at them saying, you know, indicate or turn here. They can just immerse themselves in their performance. But we've actually had some good success with some shots for film and television where we've actually had a static background, loads of really beautiful set dressing, and we've taken people, you know, it's like the Arctic or to the middle of the desert, and even though you don't have a ton of parallax in those backplates because they're not full 3D scenes, because a lot of them have just been like mountain ranges in the background or kind of, you know, that endless flat terrain, we've kind of looked at it and pre-visited them using our tools and gone, well, actually, no, if your camera moves are, you know, pans left to right, so you've just got some very, very gentle pushes in, that's going to look really good on camera. And the good thing is, you know, because more people are doing virtual production, and because we've also now in the last 6 months done, you know, such a wide range of projects, we can actually show people that are interested in virtual production, you know, this is how it can look, this is what's achievable, and, you know, warn them of pitfalls or things to avoid doing on a volume.
You mentioned the P word, parallax, which is the trick, right? That's what creates the illusion.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, people have been trying to do this in film for decades. You know, it kind of started off with the original driving background was just, you know, someone with a crank-operated bit of wallpaper that was moving behind them. But even when the people were building physical sets back in the day, you know, they'd build, you know, various 2D cut-out mountain ranges and then put them at different depths on the stage. So as the camera does move side to side, you get that sense of depth. Now we can do that with photorealistic backgrounds. You can kind of see as our camera moves behind us, sort of left to right. Even in this kind of setup where it's very subtle, you can just see it just gives you that sort of tangible effect that it, you know, you're actually in the space. And something that I say to a lot of people when it comes to virtual production is it's not just a backdrop. It's not just a window into the world. We have cheated it slightly here where we have actually got physical windows, which frames up quite nicely. But what you want to think of this is what the screen is showing you is a representation of a 3D space from the camera. So it's nice and easy to imagine in this one because we're in a big circular room. There's nothing in the foreground of the set apart from this lovely console behind us. And so we're just sat in this space. If we had, let's say, a forest background behind us, you know, there would be trees in theory in the space around us. And all the camera's seeing is if that camera was in this 3D environment, that's what it projects on the background. So we've done some stuff where we've actually had someone walk onto a virtual train that wasn't a physical set asset, and by being very meticulous with the camera work you do, you can actually place people inside 3D content.
Wow.
It's a bit more advanced, and for a lot of shoots we don't end up doing that. We'd be like, just bring a train cab onto the stage. But sometimes when shots aren't physically possible, or you don't have the budget for that, you can use a volume in that way as well.
Tell me about this particular plate or background. Is this something you created here, or something else?
Yeah, so this is, I think of our sci-fi retreat in the mountains somewhere. This was actually put together using content from the Unreal Marketplace. Okay. So the foreground of the 3D scene you're in is actually a free pack that was released as part of Epic Games' monthly free releases. But we thought we wanted something beautiful to go outside it. And so we found sort of an Arctic pack that was optimized for games, which is important because we need to make sure we're running at 25 frames per second, so we don't have any like stuttering or dropping in the background. But we also need to make sure that it was visually interesting and appealing enough that it would give us some nice lighting outside. As you can also see as well on our ceiling panel, one main reason that I chose this scene was that we had this lovely big skylight that's actually in this curved room that we're in. And so doing daylight, you normally need a lot of physical lights, but by actually making this environment top lit by design, it means that actually about 80% of our lighting is just coming from the LED volume.
So yeah, I mean that's an important thing for people to appreciate. Is it's a volume in air, yeah, it's a ceiling as well as the backdrop. And are there plans to have lighting below as well?
So you can get virtual production stages where they have got an LED floor. You know, they're really good for a lot of broadcast things or for, you know, sort of music videos or things that are quite abstract. Because, you know, you can put anything on the floor and it works. The only thing is, because it's obviously a light source, you don't have any shadows normally if someone's standing on them. So your subject can sometimes look like they're floating a little bit. Now, depending on what you're shooting, sometimes that might be what you want. But what we've got here, for example, is we've just got a vinyl floor. We've got quite a few different ones of these. We went for wood today because we want to go for a nice classy sort of sci-fi retreat. But it's amazing how you can literally see in the background there, we've got that slight specular reflection in the 3D content. And all of those reflections are actually carrying through onto our floor. So I know it's been touched on before, but it's, the physical set dressing that you use is so important to really sell the illusion. We've gone very minimal here today because we're going for more of like a studio setup. But if we were going to do this for real, we'd want to potentially have some foreground elements, something we can swap focus between, and even using practical lights as well. So we did a music video for an up-and-coming artist where they wanted to be sort of sat in a dive bar, and we actually lit them with the digital lights that were on the screen. So we had a couple of sort of dado lights on a rig behind him. We snuck one physical light on the top behind, and then we had a couple of different coloured orbs animating on the ceiling. And he just had this beautiful back rim lighting that he got from these fake lights. And we showed it to many, many people. Nobody could tell they weren't physical.
Wow.
And if you were to do something like that on a green screen, it's more or less impossible. And that's what we love showing is, if someone's got nice big frizzy hair, look at all the detail you can get, look at the focus that you can wrap. It's just about using virtual production where you can, essentially.
Where is it not a good idea?
So I think unless you've got a ginormous volume, obviously very, very large scenes can be quite tricky sometimes. Normally we tend to say sort of a 50mm or a 35mm is kind of like the sweet spot for virtual production on the sort of medium side stages. And anything that I think has got lots of action or props or is going to have a lot of post-production on it anyway. So you look at a lot of action sequences or chase scenes, and even if they're not being filmed outside and they are just being done on a green screen or a blue screen volume, we'd normally recommend that's what they're best for. Or if you're going to have to do lots and lots of post on something anyway, sometimes we say just shoot that on a volume, on a green screen. That being said, though, we can do that here as well. So we could decide, maybe we don't know exactly what we want to be outside the windows. We could just make the windows outside pure green. Right. It's lovely for post because you don't have any folds from a curtain. It's just that pure colour. And the spill you get from it is relatively minimal. So again, it's also what we do is before, you look at the script, you see what wants to be shot. If someone hasn't done the pre-production or they're not absolutely sure what they need to do, you can go, okay, well, we can give you the best of both worlds. We can use 3D content with Parallax, and you can have a blue or a green screen to do your normal post workflow on afterwards as well.
Cheating, in other words.
Yeah, oh no, virtual production is cheating as much as you possibly can. I say directors and DOPs don't care how you do it, so long as it looks good in camera.
Yeah. Where do you see virtual production in 5 years? What are the key things you expect to develop or problems to be solved?
I think the main thing for us is going to be the increase in the power of hardware. And also new softwares that are coming out. So the main one obviously is Unreal Engine 5. It's not currently quite production ready, but we've experimented with it, and they've got a few tools in there. The first one being their new nanite render engine, which essentially lets you bring in millions and millions of polygons worth of assets. And it optimizes them so aggressively and very, very well that you can maintain really high frame rates while still having almost offline rendered quality. And they've got a new lighting system called Lumen, which essentially is also ray trace lighting in real time, but even more efficient than it is now. I think eventually in about 5 to 10 years' time, you're going to start to see this sort of weird blending of traditional offline rendering and real-time graphics. And I think once we're in that point, then what you're seeing behind you, you can have the quality of a video plate, but with having real-time parallax and stuff as well. We're not quite there yet, but I think that's where it's going to go.
And then, the same from me in terms of the new ways of creating and distributing your content, both from a Unreal 5 and lighting point of view, but also from a signal distribution point of view. So new ways like SMPTE 2110 in terms of going over fiber rather than going over a traditional video signal, HDMI, DisplayPort, whatever. That's going to be a real big thing in terms of distributing your video networks in the next 5 years. You've also got things like the adoption of HDR. That's kind of arriving today, but over the next 5 years is going to be a real big thing when it comes to creating content for LED displays for the virtual production world.
So on one hand, we're going to be having like even more realistic backgrounds and even more flexibility and scope to, I guess, create different worlds and different spaces we can make films in. And on the other hand, it's about this infrastructure piece and about how the production ecosystem is going to evolve. Adam, about that side, about the connectivity and the video networks you mentioned. What do you sort of see that? What do you see the outcome of that being? What are the benefits of that?
So there's a few benefits in terms of flexibility. Currently, right now, we need to have our video source and our processors quite close together. You're limited by how far HDMI or a DisplayPort cable can go. You can get fiber converters, but then you're adding converters into an already complex system. Being able to come out of your GPU via a fiber cable is a massive win, because you can have your GPUs in a truck somewhere else, distribute that over fiber to your processors, which are located near the screen, and then distribute out from there. So the ability to distribute over fiber networks is a really exciting possibility that will become the future in the next couple of years. We're already seeing the broadcast world start to adopt this for their outside, their OB trucks, where they have a camera and video network they need to distribute over long distances in challenging conditions. They might be doing stuff in bad weather or rain or whatever, and networks really offer that flexibility to them to change things and deploy very, very quickly and reliably into different locations. So that's definitely going to come into the virtual production world as we're pushing around more pixels. We're pushing around higher and higher canvas sizes all the time, but we're also pushing around more color data and more sync data as well. We're pushing around a lot more data than we were 2 years ago. So in 5 years' time, I can see the amount of data that we're pushing around being even higher than it is right now.
So they've got to, in a way, the networks have to evolve just to keep up.
Yeah.
But there's going to be more virtual production, certainly more live events, more OB, not outside broadcast, but more use in TV and broadcast. And in terms of the onset, the graphics and so on. I mean, we've talked a lot about the phrase the democratization of virtual production. Do you see that as it's becoming more accessible to a wider range of filmmakers?
Oh, 100%. And it's not even just filmmakers now. You've got people who are either just hobbyists, or you've got people that are from either games backgrounds, or just enjoy playing around with tech. And you can do a virtual production setup at home with a TV monitor, with some sort of either like a Vive tracker, or some are even using a phone now. And a lot of the concepts are exactly the same. You need to get your picture on the screen. You need to make sure your camera doesn't have any refresh artifacts, and you need to have some nice 3D content. Going from that kind of setup to something like this, or even something much bigger scale, like the Mandalorian, it's all the same concepts. It's just more complicated with more things plugged in. There's also, like I said, a fantastic community where people are constantly sharing tutorials, advice, and people can just ask questions about these kind of things. And I think because there's no gold standard, and everyone wants virtual production, to really get pushed as far as it can, everyone's sharing information, and there's another this proprietary, sort of gatekeeping of all the technology, all the knowledge, which is fantastic for any industry.
What would you say to people who look at virtual production and say, look, there's been a lot of hype. Is it just hype? Or are we going to be moving into a time when it's going to be ubiquitous? It's going to be fundamental to the filmmaking process. Which way is it going to go?
I think it's a little of both again. Virtual production is a tool at the end of the day. It's fantastic for a lot of reasons. It's more sustainable. Logistically, it solves lots of problems. It can be cost saving. And for certain types of shots, you get a better final output. That being said, though, it is still just a tool. So I think as our workflows get better, as the software improves, as the hardware improves, it's going to be adopted a lot more. And as more shows and TVs and commercial things go out that have used virtual production, more people are going to adopt it. Because we've got so many people that have got interest in virtual production, but nobody wants to be the first person to try something new. Now we're starting to see, we've got examples of things we've done now with various different clients we can show to people that are interested. That normally then goes, oh no, yeah, okay, we know that what we want to do is possible, let's give it a go. But like I said, you've got people that swear by shooting on location, you've got people that do 50-50 between green screen and on set, and you've got some people that do whole films on a green screen. As I said, you're going to see more people using it. I think it is going to become a bit homogenized and ubiquitous, but it's not going to remove shooting on set. It's not going to completely remove green screen. It's about using it where it's applicable.
As a filmmaker, though, are you going to be left behind if you don't understand how to use it?
I think it depends on your job role.
Not that you have all the answers
I think
to everything, but we're just messing around here, playing.
I think if you're a DOP, you want to learn how to shoot against the volume. Because we're noticing a lot of people that DOPs, especially and gaffers that have worked on a stage before, they are the people that get picked for these kind of shoots. And especially if you're doing a hybrid mix where some people are on a stage and some people are doing it on location, they're not going to switch DOPs halfway through, so they get the guy with experience. If you're an art department person, if you're a director, or even if you're just like a camera or a focus puller, there are some things you'll have to sort of get your head around, but it's not going to stop you from working in the space at all. But there are 100% a couple of job roles where I recommend you want to get up to scratch just in case.
That makes sense. Adam, what are you most excited about in the next 5 years in virtual production?
I think really just seeing how people utilise this technology. We've gone from people just using LED panels for a bit of lighting, a bit of reflections, to final pixel in camera on very, very small specific sets, to building large volumes that engulf an entire set in the space of 2.5 years. We've made a massive jump forward in terms of the technology and the workflows and the application. And I'm really excited to see what people do next. The LED panels are constantly improving. The tech is constantly improving. The tracking, the cameras, the processing, everything is pushing forward at an astonishingly quick rate. So I'm really excited to see what the end users, what the creatives end up doing with this technology in 2 years' time. Are we going to be seeing even larger scale volumes? Are we going to see more pixels? Are we going to see more brightness? Are we going to see a wider color gamut? Those are all the technologies that I'm really excited to see come through over the next 2 years. And we talked a little bit about Unreal Engine 5. That has massive potential to improve what we're delivering to the screen. Really unlocking the potential of the GPUs, going into the processing, then going on to the LED for that kind of final pixel in camera VFX, and those are all technologies that I'm really excited to see kind of mature over the next 2 or 3 years.